Gothikana. I really got this book because it looked pretty. I saw it on the interwebs and I thought that looks like a book that's right up my alley. It's pretty. Rented it from my library and it gave me a lot of Nocticadia vibes. It is a dark gothic college romance with a student teacher kind of situation. And while this one isn't technically student teacher, it still has that vibe. It's essentially TA student. And it's it I'm gonna say the vibe of gothic romance is very, very strong and very similar between the two. The situations that they're in are very different. The relationships are very different. The murder situation is, but there's murder and they have to, figure stuff out. I I enjoyed it. I overall very much enjoyed it. There is a weird, almost pseudo paranormal element to it, and I kind of wanted to lean more into that, but that's just me as a PNR person. That's always going to be my preference. But if that is your vibe, if you're looking for kind of a murder mystery, gothic romance, dark vibe, go for it. It's really well written. I loved RuNyx's telling of the story, the mental stuff that we got into. Oddly enough, I felt like the actual climax and conclusion of the book went by way too fast. I wanted a little bit more action when we got to that ending. There's plenty of action between the two main characters, let me tell you. I'm never going to be a super big fan of here I'm about to take your virginity with all the power of my hips combined kind of situation. That just did not seem like a comfortable way to have one's first time be. They acknowledge it. They do a really good job of acknowledging that. Um, but that's a bit of a trope, especially. It feels almost bodice rippy, but nobody's getting married and ripping a bodice. So very stylized, very fun, good read, solid choice. Kissing Galileo by Penny Reid. If you listened to my thoughts last week, I read Kissing Tolstoy, which is the first of this kind of Dear Professor duet, and I didn't love it. Also didn't love Kissing Galileo. I think it just missed the mark for me. And I like Penny Reid. I picked these books because I hoped reading an author that I like would get me to use my Hoopla access through my library and get over my reluctance to stare at a screen and read, and it did not. It did not help. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of it just like didn't give me good feels. And given the circumstance amongst them, I'm not really going to talk about it because this is my opinion and I don't want to color it. If you want to go read these books, absolutely go read these books. Things that Penny Reid did well were the handling of professor student relationship in terms of acknowledging the power dynamics and putting in place ways to protect these students from the situations that they're in. I think that's a really good job. I think that the the journey that the mailman character went on was something that is not often talked about and should be. I like that he acknowledged that he might be on the ace spectrum in terms of his own preferences, which seems almost silly considering this book and it's about his attraction to this person. But and then when they even got together, it felt so out of character for both of them. There was so much conversation and discussion and just the for the other things that when they actually had sex, it just felt rushed. And I was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe that that's what would happen. So a little bit of a bummer for me because I like the concepts. I thought she did her shtick is cool. She makes really fun references and interesting characters, but I just kind of missed the mark. Never Met a Duke Like You is the second book in the Taming of the Duke series by Amalie Howard. Oh man, I loved the first one. Always Be My Duchess was one of my blog posts, so I love that book. And Never Met a Duke Like You did not disappoint. It is Vesper and Aspen. I always forget because this is the one thing about these kinds of books is like go back and forth between first name, last name, title, all sorts of stuff. But his actual name is Aspen. Graydon is his last name. And they are childhood sweethearts. They have a falling out and they get back together and they have lots of stuff. I feel like this, if you're looking for, if you like the idea of Regency, but you don't like historical accuracy for how sexist the Regency was, these books are for you. Amalie Howard does a great job of making feminist kind of Victorian Regency characters. So if you're looking for historical accuracy, not so much. If you're looking for fun, get these. They have a fun journey. They're very smart. They're very clever. Their push and pull is really enjoyable to watch. They like public spaces, but I mean, everything has to be a public space because you can't get into a bedroom of the opposite gender at all. But, you know, public spaces and dinosaurs. If you like dinosaurs, there are a bunch of dinosaurs in here too. One of my favorite lines. One of my favorite lines. Farewell, virginity. May you oppress some other hapless girl. And you know what? That is so true. So if you like a little bit of spice and a lot of fun banter, this book is for you. This is going to be really quick because I'm sure people like to hear others bash on books and I don't want to, but The Midnight Hunt by L.L. Rand was a book that was recommended to me by Anita. She was on my podcast way back in November as a sapphic paranormal romance, and I was all for it. There's nothing wrong with a megaverse. There is nothing wrong with paranormal. You know me, I love a paranormal. There's nothing wrong with sapphic. The style in the writing of this book is not a style that I enjoy reading. There's nothing wrong with the world or the characters or anything that L.L. Rand made. This is one of my dear friends' things. There were too many point of view switches in the midst of scenes. I don't mind when a chapter or even a section of a chapter is one point of view and then another point of view, but in the midst of a scene, if you're switching character points of view every couple paragraphs, every other paragraph sometimes, that throws me and it takes me out of the story, and I have to go back and I have to make sure that I'm in the right context. And amazingly enough, so many of these characters are women because it's a sapphic romance. Oh, yes, thank you. So great. Like, really, there were some great things in this book. But when all the pronouns are she and you're going back and forth between points of view, it makes it really hard for me to follow. And so this book was a bit of a slog for me. If you have books that are really similar, or L.L. Rand has books that are written without that, please send them to me. I appreciate what she's done. That point of view switching just is, I can't. Sorry. Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. I was really excited for this book, and I'm not disappointed by this book. I don't want to say that. But, you know, here's what I'm going to say that I liked. This is a quirky person. Love a quirky girl. Love girl that kind of like is very passionate. However, I feel like her passion and chaos was a little excessive. She is so impulsive. It is dangerous. And while I like that Colin, her love interest, accepts and really celebrates how she lives life like balls to the walls, that would not be fun for me. Time after time, we see examples of if she's just taken a breath, she could have calmed down and made better choices. Burning her love letters from her ex-boyfriend, throwing away the good sheets Colin bought her, throwing away the bed Colin bought her. These are not things that needed to happen in that moment. They were irresponsible, and she came to regret them almost immediately. So take a breath, take a break, girl. The other thing is, this book was so lightly described, like the sexual tension and the dirty text and all of that. I was like ready to get into a scene, and it is so like not described in any detail really, that at the end of it, I was like, did I blink? It was like I blinked and everything was done. And so like I don't even know if I can count this as explicit sex. It definitely they have sex. So it's not like PG-13, but I like even though it happens multiple times, the lack of description is like spice level 1. And that was disappointing because of all the sexual banter that led up to it. Lynn Painter is someone who has really fun covers, really interesting blurbs on the backs of her books. So if there's a book with like a little more spice of hers that you know, send it over. I want to read it. My love affair with Kimberly Lemming and her books just continues. Um, hmm, that time I got drunk and yeeted a love potion at a werewolf. Also, great job of the word yeet, which I have learned is the opposite of yoink. So yoink, you pull something to you. Yeet, you throw something away. So welcome, yeet, the opposite of yoink. I she's so fun. She's so fun. And I've been tabbing my things differently so they fit on my bookshelves. Anyone else had to change how they annotate so that their books fit better on their bookshelves, or is it just me? So I've changed the way they annotate so it doesn't look as dramatic, but there are so many good moments. The banter is great. These characters are great. I love the descriptions of both the women and the men. I love this world. I think that the great ratio of a bunch of paranormal demon dudes who are just looking for a mate is great. Also, there's a little bit of queer. There's a little bit of queer. Felix even admits, you know, I'm not gonna find a woman, but I might hook up with a dude. And it turns out his ex is the guy from Mistletoe, Luca from Mistletoe. Oh my goodness. We did need to read that book. I did need to read that book. I would not have met Alexis from Mistletoe and been very confused about her in this book. So love it. Love the interconnecting of these novellas with your big ones. Uh oh man. Here's Kimberly Lemming is someone who I truly believe loves and appreciates the craziness of romance novels in a way very similar to me, because the references to romance novels and people who read them and people who love them and how crazy they can get is so apparent in these books. And that just makes me feel seen in Bree. Bree's collection of romance novels and the way that she defeats the bad guy in the end, I'm like, that is a move that I would make 100%. And so it is so wonderful to see that reflected in this book and in this character. And that people are now just owning their romance novel love and the crazy romance novel love and all the things that we go. Also, one of the best examples of a definition for Omegaverse is found in this book. I'm like, yes, Brie, can you explain that to everyone I know? Because that's a really, really good definition. Kimberly Lemming, you have done it again. I got the third book in this little trio so far last week, and I'm probably going to read it in the next week or so. So, you're gonna hear more from Kimberly Lemming on my page, y'all.